There was a young boy. He grew up in southern Indiana as a sharecropper, meaning that he was part of this family that worked other people's land. They lived so poor that, as far as I've been told, they didn't even have a floor in their house. It was dirt. Grew up just hand over fist. Maybe had a potato to eat at night. Dirt poor, literally. This young boy then, as a young man, found out about the Industrial Revolution, as it's now called, and moved to Detroit. He built himself a house, and he became a boiler room operator, worked hard to try to build a life for himself, but he was far from God. As a child and as a young man, far from God, far from any semblance of a relationship with God. And then this young man became a middle-aged man. He just kept working, worked hard. He was a good and decent man, but he was far from any relationship with God. He got married. He had several children. And then in his 50s, the light of the glory of God shone through into his heart. He heard the gospel that was declared to these shepherds, that this is good news of great joy, which will be for all people, for you. And that man, he began witnessing to his granddaughter. Her name was Diane. And then later Diane witnessed to her husband named Charles. And later Diane and Charles had a son named Michael. And they witnessed to me and led me to Jesus. Because the priority of God's love reached into Alvin Feldbush's life and transformed it. And he and his wife, every time I went over there as a little boy, walked into their house, he handed me 2 ice cream cones like that. It was just awesome. And then he always had Christian television on and a Bible opened, or several Bibles opened, and they were prayer warriors in their church and prayer warriors over me. And I told you about how he would place his giant farmer's hand on my little patch of fur and pray that I'd be a laborer in God's harvest. The priority of God's love invaded his life. He would have been considered working class, lower rung of society, especially as a child, but even as a grown man. God is no respecter of persons. That means the gospel's not biased. Isn't that amazing? That is really good news. It's not bound to socioeconomic status. It's not bound to various ethnic groups. It's not bound to culture or time. It's timeless. It's cross-cultural. It's for everyone. This is good news of great joy. Glad tidings, which we can sing about and rejoice in, because the good news came first to shepherds to show us the priority of God's love to the oppressed, the outcast, and the poor. Do our priorities align with God's love?